Dober večer vsem skupaj. Dobrodošli na današnjem znanstvenem večeru. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's scientific evening. Dovolite mi, da predstavim profesorja Alessandra De Angelisa, ki bo današnji predavatelj. Profesor De Angelis je direktor Inštituta INFN v Padovi, in sicer se ukvarja z fiziko osnovnih delcev in z astrofiziko kozmičnih žarkov. V tem predavanju pa bo predstavil raziskave vesolja z elektromagnetnim valovanjem z različnih valovnih dolžin. So please allow me to briefly introduce Professor De Angelis. He is an expert in particle physics and astroparticle physics, currently working in INFN in Padova. In this lecture, he will overview the exploration of the universe using the whole spectra of different wavelengths and explain briefly what can be seen by looking at the universe with different eyes. Please.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I thank Samo, Danilo, and all the colleagues from Nova Gorica, and I'm really happy to see many enthusiastic people because there is a lot of enthusiasm in the University of Nova Gorica, and I will try to spread some of the enthusiasm that we have in this new field of research. So I will try to explain shortly what do high-energy astrophysicists do today. Basically, one is linked to the idea of astronomer and astrophysicist linked to an optical telescope looking to the universe. Well, nowadays we have the opportunity to look at the universe with different lights, with different wavelengths, with different particles, and then we learn a lot. Not only this, but the universe provides us with the most energetic beams much more energetic than the beams we are able to produce in our laboratories. And I will try to tell you why we think that with these beams we can achieve some of the most important, we can address some of the most important questions of fundamental physics. But let's start. Okay, this is one of the observatories that I will describe. This is La Palma, the MAGIC telescope, 2 17 meters telescopes. So we are linked, okay, I don't know if this is visible, but historically, we have the idea of the sky, the night sky, like something very quiet. The ancients were seeing the sky, and the sky was something looking like some stars fixed to a spherical surface. So people thought that the stars were fixed to this surface. This is, maybe you see it, this is the Milky Way, as you see it from close to the border between Italy and Slovenia. This is our view of the Milky Way. This is how you see it in the southern hemisphere. So in the southern hemisphere, this is the view of the Milky Way, and you can understand that some people, in some civilizations in Southern America, could give much larger importance to astronomy than with respect to what we gave. But still we gave a lot of importance to astronomy. Some of our conceptions of the universe are still linked to this view of the night sky, which is very quiet. So this is the Milky Way, our galaxy. We see it from a side. In the center of the Milky Way there is a very dense object, which is a black hole, and it has a mass 4 million times larger than the Sun. And this region of the black hole has a large importance in some Southern American civilizations. You remember that some time ago there was a lot of predictions into a Maya calendar and to this center of our galaxy. This light looks to us faint and somehow static. It gives us a quiet idea, but everybody knows now that the origin of the light of the stars is something that is very far from being quiet. It is one of the most powerful, most efficient ways of transforming matter into energy that we try to emulate with in our laboratories, and we are not able to do it. But basically, this energy that we see in the terms of light is produced by some nuclear phenomena, and we see it something like we see it in quiet and visible light because it is moderated by all the matter from the nuclei of stars to the surfaces of stars. So we look at the sun has a photosurface which has a temperature like okay, now they are illegal in Europe, but like a bulb, a heat bulb, like ones that we are using till a couple of years ago. Anyway, it took to us a long time to understand many of these things because we have a very limited position, a very limited view of the universe, because we have a very peripheric position. So we are here. This is the Milky Way. Now we have a lot of telescopes mapping the Milky Way. We know that this is the structure of the Milky Way. It has a bulge center with the most ancient stars. And then we are just here in an arm which is dominated by the constellation of Orion. That is the constellation, the beautiful constellation that you see. Is very close to us. So you see basically the constellation closer to us, they are far from the Milky Way just because they are closer. And as I said, we are peripheral, which explains why we see just a cloud. And we see just a limited part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see light just in this narrow spectrum, which corresponds to the color. And as you can see, the sensitivity is maximum. Our sensitivity of our eye is maximum in the green. So normally we use green pointers because the green is more visible to our eyes. By the way, this spectrum, this is the sensitivity of the human eye. The human eye is a very complicated system of photosensors, but during the day, the system is due to 3 receptors which are sensitive to the primary colors. And the spectrum of the sun maps basically, or vice versa. The spectrum of sensitivity of our eyes maps the spectrum of emission of the sun. So this is, to me, beautiful because you can interpret it like one of the successes of evolution. So the living beings that survived in the world are the living beings which have a spectrum corresponding to the spectrum of emission of the sun, because they use most effectively the sun. Okay, since now in the US you have to say, every time you say something in favor of evolution, you have to say something in favor of creationism, there is this rule, you can also interpret in the creationistic way. So we were built exactly with the spectrum, but you can choose. Okay, so the spectrum is sensitive just to a small range of wavelengths, which go from basically 0.4 micrometers to 0.7 micrometers. And this, I will have then an interval in which I will explain basically shortly what are these energies. These energies are between 1.8 electron volt and 3.1 electron volt. 1 milliwatt, which is basically what our human eye receives, corresponds during the day to 1,000 billion, 1 million of millions, of visible photons per millisecond, which is basically the minimum integration time that we have. So really a lot of photons. When we see the light of the sun, really makes a big solicitation to our eye. By the way, our eye is sensitive also to something like a few photons, 10 photons in the integration time, which is of the order of 1/10 of a second or less. Is visible to our eyes. So when we are trained to the night, we see a very minimal number of photons. If you go to an astronomical observatory where dark is really dark, even if there is no moon, at a certain point you start observing your shadow in the stars. And this is a beautiful sensation. If you smoke a cigarette, you should not smoke a cigarette, but if you smoke a cigarette, you see the light of the cigarette like something completely red. Okay, this gives you, again, an idea of how little is the space of the colors that we see compared to all the colors that we can measure from emission. So we start from wavelengths which are as large as football fields, and we go to wavelengths which are of the size of one atom. But we see just this region of wavelength and of energy. Till 30, 40 years ago, we just knew the universe through its optical spectrum. Now we opened completely new regions of observation. As we open these new regions, we observe new phenomena, we see new things. Still, everybody is now used to these different wavelengths because even if we don't observe them, unless we work with particular instruments that we'll describe, we, for example, know about the gamma ray emission from the bombs. We use X-rays when we make radiographies. And, okay, we were used to infrared emission when you study where you lose heat in your home. We know very well what are radio frequencies. Suppose that you make a collage of pictures of the universe with an optical telescope. Well, you get something like this. You project it in a plane in which the galaxy is at the equator, and you make the usual projection of a sphere into an ellipse that you use normally when you map the world. So this is the map. You see the galaxy. This is the center of the galaxy, which is this bulge. In the middle, there is a black hole. Probably all the galaxies large enough have a black hole. By the way, our galaxy is a large galaxy. It has 100 million stars. And there are 100 million galaxies in the universe. So we are very... And since 1930, we believe it to be the only galaxy in the universe. So now our view of the universe is changing a lot. So this is an optical collage. So when you look to the radio emission, you see something which has some correlation. But it's not 100% correlated. You see some objects that you observe in radio, that emit in radio, but they don't emit visibly in optical. When you go to gamma rays, you see again something. Okay, this would deserve a better explanation, but you see some, again, you see the structure of the Milky Way, and you see some parts, some structures, I will say something more about this, which you don't observe, which are not relevant in the visible light. Sometimes this different view explains you something that otherwise you could not understand. For example, one of the big mysteries of the universe is this object which is called Crab Nebula. Crab Nebula is the remnant of a star which exploded and imploded. When the stars die, they cannot support themselves anymore. They implode and explode. They send out matter. And this is the visible image of Crab Nebula. So if you take a picture, this is a real picture of Crab Nebula in an X-ray telescope, you see something like this. And then you can understand why this Crab Nebula is an emitter of photons, because you see there are vortices of matter around a dense object. You see the dense object. The dense object is pulsating. It is a neutron star, a star very compact pulsating, and you understand the dynamics of such an object. So this is an example of how seeing the universe in a different light makes you understanding what is the origin of a physical phenomenon. Okay, the other point is that we are limited because of our dimension. So this is 1 meter. This is 1 kilometer. Every step you grow by a factor of 1,000. So this is Cormons. Cormons will enter again in our discussion. Okay, a village near here. This is Italy, which is 1,000 kilometers. And then, again, one factor of 1,000, you have the system of the Earth and of the Moon. The Moon is 350,000 kilometers apart, so the light takes a bit more than 1 second to reach us. One factor of 1,000 more, and you get the solar system. And then, again, we can go now, we can move from the unit of kilometers to the unit of light years. Light years is the distance that the light covers in 1 year. How many seconds there are in 1 year? Okay, like something like we say pi 10 to the 7th. The speed of the light is 3 times 8 meters per second. So if you make the product, you get something like 10 to the 16 meters, which is 100 million billion meters. No, 10 million. Okay, 10 to the 16. I'm not used to this. Okay. Again, 1,000, factor 1,000, you get the nearest stars. Factor 1,000, you get the Milky Way. Factor 1,000, you get groups of galaxies. The galaxies, again, group among themselves. For example, we are in a group in which there are 2 large galaxies, which are us and Andromeda, and then a lot of small galaxies orbiting around us. And us and Andromeda, we are approaching. So in something like 10 billion years, we will merge, probably. At this point, astronomers will be very precious. I mean, now astronomers are neglected because people say, you do something useless, so I need a medical doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer who builds my house. But you will see when Andromeda will. Okay. We cannot grow by another factor 1,000, because then we reach the borders of the universe. The universe is expanding, and up to now, it has a size of some 13 billions of light years. So this last step by factor 1,000 is not possible. Okay, so now imagine, I mean, you are just a small living being like this, and you try to understand all these steps by factor of 1,000. Imagine your cat who wants to explore something like this. So we are trying to do this, and we are not doing bad for the moment. Okay, so we hope that we can, in this way, to somehow go beyond the visible light and approach what is at the basis of the phenomena we observe. How can we do this? I mean, as I said, we live 100 years, which is very little compared to 13 billion years. We did maximum 1 second light. We went to the moon. I mean, this is the maximum. Okay, some satellites went to half an hour of light. And we want to understand something which has a size of 13 billion years. We have some help because the universe sends some messages. So the Earth receives signals from particles coming from far away. And these particles can tell us a lot. First of all, these particles reach the highest energies observed in the universe. This is, but unfortunately, the higher the energy, the less the particles you get. Basically, every time you double the energy, the number of particles is reduced by a factor 8. So, for example, here, okay, this is the region in which the particles reaching the Earth come mostly from our galaxy. And this limit is 1 particle per square meter per year. This is 1 joule. And when you reach the level of 1 joule is the energy that 100 grams reach when they fall by 1 meter. Then you get 1 particle per square kilometer per year at this energy. And then you reach this energy. Just to tell you, these are the energies of LHC, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN Geneva. So when people were saying maybe the Large Hadron Collider will make a black hole, well, we were not believing very much into this because we received these particles since billions of years and nothing happened up to now, we believe. Okay, I make an intermezzo with energy because now I want to define them a bit so we can follow in a way. So 2 electron volt is the visible light. Take 2 volts, you make an electron to accelerate, and this is the energy. 1 GeV, it is 1 billion electron volt, and it is the energy that it takes to create a proton from scratch. From energy. 7,000 GeV is the energy of a beam, of a particle, of a proton at LHC. The record was reached yesterday, 6.5, and it is more or less the kinetic energy of a mosquito, but just in one particle. 6 billion electron volt is 1 joule, and the highest energy that was ever measured is of the order of 100 GeV and 100 joule, and it comes from a particle. So imagine one particle coming from space and having this energy. Cosmic rays don't seem to come from a particular direction, apart from small effects. This is one real image of a galaxy. Of a galaxy which has a black hole which is active. So it is growing. It is, black holes can accrete if they found material around. They can eat the material around, but the process is not very efficient. So suppose, for example, that you throw some water into your basin. The water will fall in the hole, but not completely efficiently. So there will be some water coming out, and the same happens here. So the stars and matter fall into the black hole, but part of them goes around. So these particles hit the Earth, but fortunately they find the atmosphere. Otherwise, you could risk to be hit by a single particle of 100 joules, and this would kill you. But fortunately, there is the atmosphere which moderates this, and when the particles come here, they make showers of particles. By the way, people traveling by plane are exposed to this radiation much more than us. We living at sea level or nearby. So what happens when a particle hits the atmosphere? It does something like this. And at sea level, you get very, very low energy particles, which are not so dangerous over a large surface. Okay, how do you know all this? Well, I invite you to find this movie. I think it is impossible to buy, but you can find it in the internet. The movie is called The Strange Case of the Cosmic Rays, and it is by Frank Capra and Walt Disney. Probably the youngest people don't know who is Frank Capra, but Frank Capra is a famous director. And the scientific part of the movie is done by Rossi and Anderson, which are two great cosmic ray physicists. So it is a serious movie. Indeed, I showed it to my daughter. My daughter said it is very boring. And as a matter of fact, this was a series that Disney wanted to do on on science. And after the first 2 episodes, the series stopped because there was no audience. But I find it very, very beautiful. So, The Strange Case of the Cosmic Rays. You see. And it has some quotation from history. There is a priest measuring radioactivity on top of a cupola, and this has some link to reality. So I invite you to download this movie and see it. Okay. So this was discovered only 1 century ago. There were 2 independent and complementary ideas. One guy decided to go on an aerostatic balloon at 5,000 meters and observe that there were more radioactivity than at Earth, and then he said, okay, then there is radioactivity coming from the cosmos. And another guy decided to go underwater, and he measured there was less radioactivity underwater. So this was 2. Of course, this is a better measurement because this is a direct measurement. This is a disappearance measurement, and it is we physicists, we love less the disappearance measurements, but the result was the same. Okay, what else we discovered about this? Well, we discovered that this is not yet a discovery, but in 1933, people just had discovered the neutron, and people were hypothesizing that a proton plus an electron was becoming a neutron. And then one very visionary physicist, which was Frank Zwicky, made the conjecture that cosmic rays come from heavy stars which collapse. And when they collapse, they become stars of neutrons. The paper has 0 formulas. This is just a visionary paper. And it took a lot of time before this mechanism, there could be an explanation for this mechanism. And the explanation was made by Enrico Fermi 16 years later, when he explained the mechanism by which, by random, apparently random motion, but with a driving direction in an expansion field, particles can accelerate. This is a collage of the motion of... Does it work? This doesn't work. Okay. Okay, you can see in the motion of the matter surrounding Crab Nebula, there is a movie taken in international last 15 years. You can see some movements which can explain the acceleration. By the way, Enrico Fermi was having a lot of the so-called Fermi problems. So, for example, he was asking his students questions like, how many dentists are there in Slovenia? Could you answer to this question? You think, I don't have the elements to answer to this question. But instead, if you think, okay, you can think, I go to the dentist twice per year, it stays there 1 hour, I stay there 1 hour, 2 hours. A dentist can work 50 hours per week. And then you can derive how many dentists, more or less, there are in Slovenia. So he made a calculation like this about, Fermi was happy when the calculation was right by a factor of 10. So he made a calculation of what is the energy, maximum energy reachable by a terrestrial accelerator, and the result is 5,000 TeV, so less than 1,000 times more than LHC. We reached more or less the maximum. This calculation is a masterpiece, by the way. Then Fermi calculated that this accelerator, the maximum accelerator, which runs over a meridian, will be built in the year 2010. This he missed, but okay, in a factor of, in an order of magnitude, it can be right. I mean, it's a factor of 10. And the cost, he said that it was some $10,000 million, which is underestimated for such an accelerator. So, but this was Enrico Fermi. Okay, some of the main discoveries of new particles were discovered is coming from cosmic rays. And by the way, the Nobel Prize of this year was also given for a discovery coming from the study of cosmic rays, which is the fact that neutrinos can change their nature and then they have mass. So this is the motivation of the Nobel Prize of this year. If you have questions, you can ask later questions. I don't have the time to detail on this. But you see here, cosmic rays are not a lot. So you need big detectors, large detectors. And this Super Kamiokande is a big pool. You see here physicists. And these are instruments reading the photons in the pool. And you can guess the size of the pool from here. Okay. These are some other of the main results, but in particular, thanks to cosmic rays, we demonstrated the existence of the black holes. Now I show you another movie. I hope this works. Yes, it works, yes. So this is a movie integrating 15 years again. This is the center of our galaxy. And you see that in the center of our galaxy, there is a motion of stars against an invisible point. And you can, from the usual laws of mechanics, you can derive the mass of this thing which is in the center. The mass is 4 million solar masses. And it is very likely from the size that this object is a black hole. So a very dense object from which light cannot escape. Can we use these cosmic rays to make astronomy? Well, as I said, they are mostly protons, but unfortunately there are some magnetic fields in the universe such that the protons lose memory of their origin when they travel from cosmic accelerators. So it is very, very, very difficult. You need very, very large telescopes. We are trying to build such large telescopes. And here also Slovenia is involved in this, Because the largest telescope in the world that is running since several years, and we run at least 10 years more, I believe, in which Nova Gorica has a large importance for the construction of the detector, is an object which has 3,000 square kilometers of surface. Just to give you an idea, the full Slovenia is 20,000 square kilometers. So imagine you take 1/6 of Slovenia and you make a detector there. It's impossible. So it is in Argentina. Slovenia should not accept, I believe, to have in their home, close to their home, this kind of detectors. Well, cows are quite happy. So, nevertheless, locating the source of charged cosmic rays is impossible or extremely difficult. And then, probably, the simplest way is to use this tiny fraction of photons, which are just 1 every 1,000 particles or less, because photons point straight to the emitter. Very energy photons interact with the atmosphere, so if you want to see them, you must use either satellites or big detectors at ground. Then you can hope to see the shower generated by the particle in its collision. So we did both things, and we discovered a lot about the universe in a different view. This is a typical satellite, the largest satellite for detecting gamma rays. By the way, this satellite, the main part, the prototype of the main part, and 15% of the detector was built by an Italian company based in Cormons, which is of, if you go there, the amount of Slovenian engineers is overwhelming, because it's like at NASA. If you go at NASA now, they're all Russians. So if you go to high-tech company in Italy, the percentage of people coming from this region is very high. Okay, this is the object. Or you can hope to intercept the shower, and then you have to put detectors high in the mountains and directly intercept the shower. Or again, to use a subtle effect, which is called the Cherenkov effect. The Cherenkov effect consists in the fact that when a particle is faster than light in a medium, this is possible. It's not something violating physics. So light is slower in the atmosphere because it is lower by the index of refraction of the medium. And then if you have the speed larger than the speed of light in the medium, the particle emits a flash of light. So you can have, this is the same thing like the supersonic bang of a plane, but in this case it is a flash of light. By the way, this was a Nobel Prize in '58. This Cherenkov was the student of a guy who was not awarded the Nobel Prize because he died. So the message is, if you want to win the Nobel Prize, do your discovery when you are young, because this guy was assigned the work, and now he's remembered for the work. Okay. This is a movie showing how telescopes use the Cherenkov effect for detecting gamma rays. So you have this shower of particles. Then you have this flash of light. This is more or less the speed of the light, with an approximation of 1 millionth. Then it hits telescopes, and then we get an image of the thing. So this shows you, this is a cartoon of the telescope that I will show you as an example. These are the MAGIC telescopes, which are in this island. This island is kept dark. The population agreed to give us, to limit a lot light pollution. 1 day per year, they switch off all the lights in order to allow calibration. So they're very friendly. They know that they should not. Okay, this is where it is, this island. It is La Palma. This is a view from the plane. And this is a volcano where there are all the telescopes. This is a view of the telescope. This is Tenerife. Here there are all the discos. So the discos make it difficult to observe the light. And this is the MAGIC telescope. Since many phenomena are transient, this telescope must move very quickly. So you imagine these are 17 meters telescope, and this is a real-time movie. When we get an alert from a source in which we imagine that there can be gamma rays, we move the telescope and we point to the source in less than 30 seconds. I have still 7 minutes, so I move faster. Okay, nowadays telescopes are modular because it is impossible to build a single surface of 17 meters. And what we do is that we have like a fly eye, and in real time there is a monitor system which focuses the mirrors to the focus. It's a multiple mirror. So if you look to the universe now with these tools you can point to the sources because the photons come straight from the sources. And one of the most amazing things that were discovered is that if you look to the universe, it looks more like a movie rather than a picture. This is a collage in which every second, no, not every, sorry, every picture corresponds to 1 day of observation. The galaxy is the equator. So the galaxy, you don't see the galaxy because it is at the equator, and you see galaxies different from our galaxy. So from the top, you see the universe. Imagine you can see the universe from the top and from the bottom. This is a kind of divine comedy view of the universe. Okay. So you see there are lights going on and off, which means that this is the sun, this is a geocentric view. So the thing that you see moving here is the sun. Okay, why are these phenomena so quickly variable? Because they come from gravitational collapses. So the ultimate engine of the universe seems to be gravitational collapses. And the main actors of these gravitational collapses are the black holes in the center of galaxies. As I said, all large enough galaxies appear to have a black hole in the center. These black holes can have masses of 1 billion solar masses. Our black hole has a mass of 1 million solar masses, 4 million solar masses, but still, even if it's not as spectacular as this, has been probably active in the past, because we still see in the spectrum of gamma rays some structures of size comparable with the galaxy and of energies large comparable with 20 GeV, 20 proton masses, perpendicular to the disk of the galaxy. These are not the highest energy phenomena because we can see also phenomena which outshine the rest of the universe. We observe every day one burst of gamma rays which has an energy larger than the rest of the universe in gamma rays. By the way, this is a funny story because this was discovered by the Americans, by the military Americans, when they were trying to monitor the activity of Russians, also Soviets, the nuclear activity of Soviets in space. And they didn't publish it because it was secret. Probably also the Soviets discovered it, but Soviets were better at keeping the secrets. Finally, the largest of the mysteries that we have now is the so-called dark matter. So we know that most of the matter in the universe, if you want to explain the motion of objects in the universe, is not the matter we are done of. And this is a kind of new Copernican revolution. And again, Zwicky was conjecturing this in 1930, but now we have the proof that this is true. Again, the key for finding this new component of the universe, dominant component of the universe, is gamma rays. But there are also different detectors at the frontier for this search, which are, in particular, telescopes for neutrinos. Neutrinos are particles which can travel further away with respect to photons. So if you can detect neutrinos, they are like photons because they point to the source, but they are better because they can travel from more distant sources. Unfortunately, you need even larger detector for this. And now, presently, astrophysicists are building 2 of these detectors. One is a cube of 1 cubic kilometer in Antarctica, buried in the ice, which is called IceCube. And the other is a 1 cubic kilometer to 3 cubic kilometers detector in the Mediterranean Sea, underwater. Finally, we are building a large detector of photons, which will allow us to reach the highest energy with photons. Also in this, the University of Nova Gorica is involved. This has very important aspects also because as a side effect of this, we are producing a detector, a light detector, which for the first time is more sensitive than the human eye. So till 10 years ago, we couldn't build a detector as large as our eye, which could be sensitive to 3 or 5 photons. Now, thanks to this kind of detection, we are able to do it. So this will have deep advantages in terms of medical science. We'll make bigger detectors and with these more advanced technologies. This is a maquette of how, for example, the first large telescope will look like. I move to conclusions. Okay, this is. So the light in the sky is different from what it seems, because we see something quiet and we relax, but the origin of this are very violent phenomena. Now, we are learning a lot on nature thanks to this phenomena, and this is very recent. Till 30, 40 years ago, we didn't observe the universe in any light different from the light of our eyes. So this is one of the fastest growing fields of investigation. This is where most, I would say, of the frontier scientists of today, physicists at least, are involved. And I hope that somebody will be interested in it. Okay. Since I am a teacher, before concluding, there is a homework. I cannot finish a lecture without the homework. The homework is, you look at the sky with your eyes, you go to some amateur astronomers. Are there amateur astronomers here? So you ask, I'm sure that in Nova Gorica there is a club of amateur astronomers. You ask them too. Normally, these people are very, very happy to host you in their observatories and to spend the night with them. So you look at the fantastic view of the sky. And then you ask for explanation to the local teachers who will be happy to give you explanations. And then you decide to study astrophysics, high-energy astrophysics. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro, for an interesting presentation. So we have time for some questions. I'm sure we have volunteers.
Probably there was already one. There is a secret one that everybody... of the two pulsars merging, yes, this. No, there are rumors that there was already a detection of gravitational waves, but it is it is a unique phenomenon that probably nobody will be able to confirm. But I think in the next 10 years, I'm optimistic.
Yes, Mustian.
But who will see this movie? Since I'm involved officially, I have an official answer. And
you can give me the answer afterwards.
Okay, I'll say if you are pessimistic, never, no, I'm joking. I believe that the southern hemisphere detector, even in the most pessimistic hypothesis, will be done by 2022. Then we can have a chat. I mean, I have more information, but it depends on the money. The cost has exploded to 300 millions.
I have a question. When some collapse of two stars happen, like in universe, after how long we can measure this effect actually? Like how long it takes to measure this effect of these gamma ray showers on the Earth?
Well, the collapse of two stars is not an immediate process. I mean, okay, let's say, after there is energy emission of by the collapse of the two stars, then the time that is needed is just the distance divided by the speed of light. But the time that it really takes for stars to collapse, the process of accretion is not completely fast, because normally it goes through some tidal effects. So it's not that the two stars normally collapse like this, because they normally turn. And then you can need, months of years, depending on the dynamics of the process. So it can be a long process. But after you have the energy emission, then it is D divided by C. I got all the questions from, I must say, there are some questions from curious people who didn't know anything about the subject, just came here to decide if it was to study astrophysics or not, or if the money that we get is well used or not, because I would be happy to answer to people who have some basic curiosity. Because we want to expand to new markets. This is the point.
So you said that the Andromeda galaxy is coming closer to our Milky Way.
Yes.
And what I
or vice versa.
Yeah, okay. What is the reason for this? Because the whole universe is expanding.
This is a fantastic question. So the universe is expanding in the sense that the space is expanding. But if you take distribution of matter which are close enough, there are local effects which are overwhelming with respect to the general expansion. And since the Milky Way and Andromeda are very big, their gravitational attraction dominates the expansion of space. So it would be fantastic to be there when...
So why they went, why did they went away from each other at the first place? Okay.
Well, probably at a certain point there was an expansion of the universe in which there were some seeds, some anisotropies, some difference of density, small difference of densities in the beginning. And then this small difference of densities clustered some matter. And then stars started forming. And then these two big objects formed, and there were some very small objects around. And then when they were big, they started attracting.
Okay, thank you.
Probably, yes. It will go like this. No, now, it will go like this. We don't know what happened up to now, but we can predict the future in this sense.
Can I ask something?
Please.
Sorry, I'm a biologist. So you said, I think, that the black hole in the center of the Milky Way is not active.
Not more.
What does that mean?
Allora, so it means that there is not a lot of energy emission. A black hole is active when there is a lot of matter around, and then it eats all this matter, and then it emits a lot of energy because of this inefficient fueling. But for example, last year, the black hole, a cloud of material, of hydrogen, passed near the black hole. And this was observed. There was basically one solar mass, so it was not a big cloud. But the black hole ate this, so there was some activity. But
So
it's
it
not
could
a
eat
big-
us up.
Yes.
Thank you.
But the people, I mean, we are not very worried because we are far away from the center. Yeah. With the CTA, no, ask me what is the best goal that I expect to achieve. No, with CTA, I think that the best goal that CTA expects to achieve is to find dark matter, but it requires a lot of luck. So, with some luck, CTA could find dark matter. You work at what, LHC or? Okay. Also LHC with some luck can find dark matter. Yeah.
One question, could the result of some new theories that said that a photon has non-zero mass change our understanding of the universe, because there's a lot of photons in the space which has a lot of energy, and in fact, if there's no zero mass, a lot of mass.
Mm-hmm. With the current limits, the photons cannot saturate the full missing energy of the universe. With the current limits on the behavior of the field. Okay, as you know, the best measurement of photon mass are through the dependence of the field on 1 over square and the consequence on the distribution of fields. So with the current limits, they cannot be the full explanation, but they would change completely the cosmology. They would change completely the models of cosmology, so we maybe could review our determinations of cosmology. So, but if the photon has mass, then you open a lot of problems, because in a flat space, if the photon says, I mean, the field 1 over squared in a flat space is a fundamental property related to the number of dimensions of space. So to change, I mean, this would change all the physics. I mean, before worrying about dark matter, I mean, there are other fields which are completely changed. I would like the photon to have no zero mass.
It will make your life more interesting for
a lot of jobs for the young people. I mean, the photon is no zero mass.
Okay, any more questions? If not, thank you, Alessandro, for the talk and for a very interesting
discussion. Thank you, everybody.